Hello, everyone. My name is Will Morris, and I am alongside my brother and good friend, John Morris, and you're listening to Wicked Good Sports Talk. Um, yeah, so we're just two guys who like talking sports, especially Boston sports, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. Do you want to introduce yourself, John?
Yeah, I'm John. I'm going to be a freshman in college next year. And Will and I have been doing Wicked Good Sports Talk at our school radio station for a couple of years now. And we've really just had a great time being on air. And we're really excited to be with WJOP this summer, broadcasting our show and uploading it onto the WJOP YouTube page.
Do you want to just get right into it with some football talk?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I was thinking we'd start out discussing New England Patriots. Obviously, for the Patriots, tough off season, brutal for us here in New England. So used to winning a lot of games, making it to the Super Bowl, and last season didn't end the way we wanted it to. Lost in the wild card round to the Titans, and this March things kind of just blew up for us when Tom Brady, who's been the quarterback of the team for longer than I've been alive, decided to hang up his Patriots jersey and head down to Tampa Bay. And then later in April, about a month later, Rob Gronkowski, another former Patriot, decided to come out of retirement to join Tom in Tampa. And as a Patriots fan, it definitely hurts to see two guys who have been staples in the community and both just obviously great football players as well. Won a lot of games with those two. It's tough to see them go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, really, this is a case of Bill Belichick and his stone cold heart biting him in the butt. So obviously, the news is well known at this point amongst New England fans that Bill Belichick tried to trade Tom Brady a few years ago. At this point, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I believe.
Yeah, it was during the Jimmy Garoppolo
Yeah,
time. So about
five
5 years
years ago.
ago ish.
5 years ago. And he wanted to trade him to the 49ers in the deal that we ended up getting for Jimmy Garoppolo. However, Kraft vetoed the trade and told Belichick that, I mean, it was just a ridiculous thing to do to trade Tom Brady, the face of New England, somebody who had brought so much joy to Patriots fans all over the various states that support him. And as a result, Brady held a grudge. And I mean, in a very Brady-esque, I'll prove everybody wrong fashion, he managed to win 3 Super Bowls after Bill Belichick tried to make that trade. And so Brady showed he had a lot of gas left in the tank. And, he definitely, stuck it in Belichick's face. And I think that him leaving this offseason is him continuing to hold that grudge against Belichick. I mean, really, the two of them, Belichick and Brady, have just had one of the most successful careers that a coach and quarterback can have together. I mean, just across all sports, just a coach and star player, the way those two were able to win games across 2 decades is unmatched in any other sport, really, particularly football. And so I really do think Brady was heartbroken that Bill Belichick wasn't as loyal to Brady as Brady was to Belichick.
And I mean, it definitely stinks to see those two break up because, as you mentioned, a lot of winning was done by those two, and you mentioned how it's probably the best like star player head coach run across any sport. And the NFL is designed in a way there's a hard salary cap, so it's hard for teams to maintain dominance over or through lots of years, and we were able to do it for 20 years, which is it's just crazy to think about. I thought that maybe we should talk about the Patriots going forward in the future. how are we gonna get by without Tom Brady? I mean, Belichick is still the head coach of the team. Obviously, it seemed like he drove Brady out, but still a great head coach, a genius, a football genius at least. What do you think about Belichick? Do you think that he has what it takes to coach this team? Do you think he's valuable enough uh, to the Patriots that he can like propel the Patriots to the playoffs or something?
Well, I mean, I do think that it's really unfair to say that the Pats are going to have a terrible season because no matter what, Bill Belichick is going to make the Patriots win a few games. I mean, the Matt Castle Patriots went 10-6 when we had the brisket at QB to
Jacoby
Cody Rowe.
Brissett, yeah.
I mean, it's the Bill Belichick really knows what he's doing. I mean, he's just a fantastic head coach, and I think you need to give him credit where credit is due. Even though the New England mantra "In Bill We Trust" is really being tested to the fullest now that he's driven Brady out of New England. I look. Do I think the Patriots are going to be a real playoff contender? Absolutely not. They're not going to be in it for the Super Bowl this year. It hurts me to say it, but they're not in contention. And I mean, even though I do think Bill Belichick can coach this team to like a 50-50 record, they haven't made any acquisitions this free agency, like they haven't aggressively gone after any players. I mean, it almost begs the question of if they're tanking to try to draft like Trevor Lawrence or something because they've just made zero moves this offseason. So I mean, I really don't know what to think. I think that if Bill Belichick and the Patriots try to win, they can probably scrap together a 50-50 season, or maybe a little worse or a little better than that, 7-9, 9-7, 8-8, like in that territory. And if they don't try and are tanking, which I honestly think might be a possibility, well, then the sky's the limit in terms of losses.
Yeah, yeah. It's really not just Tom Brady that the Patriots lost. As you mentioned, the lack of acquisitions, but we lost a lot of guys too. So many subtractions. Two linebackers, a Landon Roberts, who's more of a reserve type guy, and Kyle Van Noy, who was kind of one of the stars of our defense.
Huge player.
Both of them gone to Miami. Jamie Collins, Danny Shelton, and Daron Harmon all to Detroit. And then we also, this isn't, those are all defensive subtractions. This one is a coaching subtraction, but Joe Judge, who was our special teams coordinator, and Nate Ebner, who was one of our better special teams players, both decided to join the Giants. Also cut kicker Stephen Gostkowski and lost receiver Philip Dorsett to Seattle. And then when you look at our additions, Adrian Phillips, a safety from the Chargers, probably not a huge difference maker, but probably will be our starting safety, someone who's going to replace Harmon. And then Demir Bird, who's a reserve receiver type, and Bo Allen, who's an older defensive lineman. We got him from Tampa Bay, actually. So swapped Gronk and Brady for Bo Allen. But yeah, so when you look at those moves and the fact that, we don't have a ton of cap space, or we didn't have a ton of cap space in the offseason, but it's pretty clear that Belichick wasn't really going out and trying to sign anyone good. He kind of just let the offseason happen and lost all these guys. So it does make me wonder if we are in fact taking this season away. And when you look at the draft next year, there's a pretty special prospect at the quarterback position that's sort of been talked about as the number one pick for the past 3 years, really, and that's Trevor Lawrence from Clemson. So you wonder, are we just going to throw away this season and try to draft Trevor Lawrence? Our quarterback for this year is Jarrett Stidham, who's a second-year product from Auburn. I think he was a third or fourth round pick.
He was a third, right?
Yeah, middle of the draft type pick. So not like a heavy not like a major investment. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Jarrett Stidham. Do you think that he has what it takes to lead this team? Because the quarterback is the most important position in football, and we need good play from Stidham if we're going to win games.
Well, first, I'll answer that question absolutely. But first of all, I want to mention another loss that the Patriots had, and that's Devlin at fullback. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, he was just an integral part of the Pats' offense. You know, blocking for running backs like Blount, White. I mean, he's really just an essential part of our Super Bowl runs over the last 5 years. And obviously, he was injured for the better part of last season. And we actually had Roberts, who you also mentioned. Even though his primary position is a linebacker, we had him in at fullback to replace Devlin for a lot of snaps. But I mean, the Patriots just run a fullback heavy offense. You know, I mean, like a lot of our running plays require lead blocks from a fullback. And I mean, Devlin just did a fantastic job, and it really stings to see him go. So I think that's definitely going to hurt us, even though Devlin might not be the most sung hero that the Patriots have in their organization. And then in terms of your question about Stidham, I mean, again, the Bill We Trust mantra continues to be tested extremely hard this offseason. I mean, again, I really don't know if Bill actually has faith in this guy or if we're tanking for Lawrence. I will say I watched Stidham in the preseason, and he showed promise, but he also just had some horrible misreads. I remember in the red zone during one of the preseason games, he threw a horrible interception, where the ball just got away from him. And I mean, like mistakes like that, in the other team's fifth of the field, it's just not cool, like you got to be careful with the ball. I really hope that there's something there with Stidham this season, because as a Pats fan, I really don't want to watch a tank, like I really don't want to turn on the TV and see that we're down by 35 points every week. That being said, I think I think there's a real chance that that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Interesting how you brought up the preseason. I went back and sort of looked at Stidham's college career. And he started his career off at Baylor, ended up transferring to Auburn. And after his sophomore year at Auburn, he was sort of looked at as almost a first round caliber player, but his junior year at Auburn, the team was really disappointing. They lost some receivers, and he just didn't have a lot of targets, had a pretty weak offensive line. And as a result, he struggled a little bit his last year at Auburn, and his draft stock fell. So statistically, his numbers aren't particularly impressive from that last year at Auburn. About a 61% completion rate, 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, with about 2,800 yards. So, not a terrible statistical season. And just going back and watching some of those Auburn plays, a lot of the times he just doesn't really have a lot of time to get the ball off, and he's just sort of dumping it off to Auburn's running back or throwing a quick slant to receiver. He's not like a super strong arm quarterback, so not someone who's going to be throwing a lot of long bombs, but like has some like decision making lapses. But I think he's a pretty sound decision maker, someone who's going to be able to make the right read most of the time. And he's also pretty mobile too, which is a change from Brady. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not going to be running over defenses and tearing up defenses with his legs, but he can move around in the pocket well and escape the pocket a little bit. Sort of reminds me a bit of Alex Smith, who played in San Francisco and Kansas City, and I think he was in Washington and had a brutal leg injury that has likely ended his career. But Alex Smith was a pretty good quarterback in the NFL. I don't know if he's the guy that you're going to like build a Super Bowl winning team around, but Stidham's not a bad player.
Yeah, I mean, I actually really like your Alex Smith comparison, just in my experience watching him. Just someone who makes a lot of safe passes and gets the job done on offense. But I mean, again, I just, in my opinion, the Chiefs were wasting their offense on Alex Smith, and then Mahomes took the keys and really opened up that playbook. And I even though Smith put up good numbers in the Chiefs offense, like it just became so much more explosive when a quarterback who was willing to make a more dangerous throw entered the equation. And so look, I'm not saying the NFL, like all these teams are looking for gunslingers, because that's just not true. I mean, really a lot of like teams are looking for people who are willing to make calculated risks while throwing the ball and also generally make good decisions. And I mean, you're looking for guys who can make a big play. Like you look at the rising quarterbacks in the NFL right now, guys like Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, obviously Patrick Mahomes, who's got to be the most talented quarterback the league has ever seen. I mean, all these guys just have massive big play potential, you know, on their legs in the air. Like they just any play can be like a 50-yard touchdown, unless of course you're closer than 50 yards to the end zone. But any play can be a huge breakout play. And so I feel like the NFL has become more and more of a big play league as defenses grow stronger and schemes grow more difficult to break through every year. And a guy like Stidham, I just don't know if he's going to make that big play.
Yeah, so it seems like we're both sort of viewing Stidham as more of like a bridge quarterback, someone who's probably not going to be terrible for the next however many years he's with the Patriots. But I don't think either of us really view him as a guy who's going to like truly elevate this team. I think it's also worth talking about the supporting cast around him. You look at his weapons, and it's kind of the same cast of characters that Tom Brady was dealing with last year. Edelman is still there, and he regressed a little bit last year, had some dropping problems, but still a great receiver. And then other than that, it's like Mohamed Sanu, N'Keal Harry, our new guy Damiere Byrd, who I mentioned, Jacoby Myers. Hopefully he has a bigger role. Maybe we'll use Gunnar Olszewski, who was our punt returner. Maybe we'll slot him at receiver, use him as like a backup slot guy to Edelman. But yeah, not a lot of great weapons. And then at tight end, we drafted Dalton Keene and Devin Asiasi. And then there's also Matt Lacoste. So you look at these weapons, and there's just not really a whole lot there. And I think Stidham's okay, but you also wonder, like, is he going to be – he's a young quarterback, not like the most talented guy in the world. Is he going to be able to, like, do well offensively with this cast of characters that we have at our skill positions?
Yeah, well, it looks like more of his Auburn days for him.
Exactly.
I mean, I think he's used to throwing the ball to people who don't necessarily have their head on straight. And I mean, N'Keal Harry. I mean, N'Keal Harry's physically gifted, but mentally he just doesn't seem to understand the game very well. I mean, I'm just recalling the playoffs last season and that Titans game where Brady was just chewing him out play after play for messing up his routes. I know the Patriots run a lot of option routes for receivers where they can choose one of two directions to go in or one of two cuts to make. And Brady would throw it into the opening and N'Keal Harry would make the wrong cut, And I mean, it's just, he's just clearly is a little bit of an airhead when it comes to route running. and receiver IQ. I really love Olszewski. I don't think he's the most talented guy in the world, but I really love the heart he plays with. And I honestly think over the next few years, he's going to grow into a bigger and bigger role in the Patriots organization. And I can honestly see him being the heir to Edelman, just the intensity and the heart that he plays with. I know that's a bit of a bold prediction, but I just remember watching him last preseason, and I mean, he was all over the field making plays, and he's just a very high energy, a lot of willpower kind of player. And then Jacoby Myers has to be the most promising of the cast of characters
Yeah.
that we have in terms of our offensive weapons. And I can see Jacoby Myers becoming a good receiver in the NFL. I can totally see it. I thought he played well in the games last year. I mean, it wasn't like he jumped off the screen or anything, but he made good catches, ran solid routes. It kills me that we drafted N'Keal Harry over DK Metcalf, given that they have similar physical profiles, and we kind of drafted N'Keal Harry to be the big play guy when we could have drafted Metcalf to be that big play guy. Like they were really the two guys to fill that role, and we just made the horribly wrong decision. Like I'm not totally giving up on him. I mean, he's still incredibly talented. It's just DK Metcalf came into the league, and although he had a bit of a dropping problem, he was immediately making big plays for the Seahawks.
Yeah, I think with N'Keal Harry, the key is that he was injured last year, and as a result, didn't have great chemistry with Brady. Joined later in the season, and yeah, I mean, we used the first round pick on him last year, so obviously the organization sees something in him, and hopefully he's worthy of that investment. Right now, it doesn't look like it was a great pick, but it's just it was his first season. The guy's played like 7 games in the NFL, so yeah. Hopefully he can turn into something. I just think this is going to be a season where very similar to last year, where a lot of our passes are just kind of dump offs to James White. Not a lot of downfield stuff. Our O-line isn't terrible. Hopefully Isaiah Wynn can progress, and yeah, hopefully Shaq Mason can return to form. He had a tough year last year, but he's consistently been a Pro Bowl level guard.
Yeah.
Joe Thuney, we locked up on the franchise tag, and he was actually quite good last year. And then David Andrews, who missed last season, is back. And then there's Marcus Cannon, who's regressing, but he's an older player, but just a solid vet. So I don't think the O-line is bad. I think getting Andrews back is huge, and another year of Wynn sort of learning and developing. And I don't think Shaq Mason is going to be that as bad as he was last year again. So I think the O-line is okay, but I just don't think we have any like receivers who are big downfield threats.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say it again. Not drafting Metcalf, it's just killing me right now. It's just killing me.
Yeah, we could have got A.J. Brown, who's playing in Tennessee.
He's fantastic.
He would. I think to me, he's a better player than DK Metcalf by a pretty wide margin, just because he has that big play potential, and he's has really steady hands. Yeah, I guess I'll shift over to the defensive side of the ball, where lost a lot of players, but on paper, this is still a really darn good defense. Most of our subtractions were at linebacker, but Dante Hightower's still there. Jawan Bentley is back, and hopefully he'll have a bigger role this year.
He's really good.
He's a good player. And then John Simon isn't bad. Chase Winovich. We still have like a good linebacking group.
Winovich is great.
Yeah.
At OLB.
And then the D-lines still got Lawrence Guy, Adam Butler, and Bo Allen aren't great. Dietrich Wise isn't great, but Lawrence Guy is a good player. And the other guys, like I don't think Bo Allen and Dietrich Wise rather, are gonna like hold us back too much. Not every defense is perfect, and when you look at the other positions on our defense, we're pretty loaded, especially in the secondary. J.C. Jackson, Stephon Gilmore, who won Defensive Player of the Year last year, Devin McCourty, Patrick Chung, Kyle Duggar, who was our top draft pick this year. We used a second-round pick on him, and Adrian Phillips, who I mentioned. Did I say Jason McCourty too? We got both McCourty brothers back. So, Jonathan Jones too, who I really like. So the secondary is still probably the best in the league. The linebacking core isn't as good, but it's not bad. And the D-line, we still got Lawrence Guy there. So I still think we have a good defense.
I've sort of become convinced that the Patriots and the way their defensive system works, I'm sort of convinced they can just rotate linebackers.
Yeah.
Because it just seems like an uncanny amount of success our linebackers have had consistently over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And it's no-name guys,
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of under the impression that like the way our system works is if you can just get a good athlete in that position, they can shine, Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, especially a guy like a Landon Roberts. He was a nobody. We brought him in and he looks pretty good at the linebacker spot. Van Noy was sort of looking like a draft bust, someone who was like barely an NFL player, and we signed him and turned him into one of the best linebackers in the league. So, yeah, I trust us to develop a lot of these guys, Juwan Bentley and Chase Winovich, the young guys especially. So, yeah, I still think this is a strong defense. Offensively, I again, really worry about the team. Sony Michel's still there, who I didn't mention before, but not like a great running back, but someone who is powerful, good on the goal line. And I like the duo of Michel and White, mixing up with like the power and finesse. So yeah. So I guess I'll ask you, John, what are your expectations for this season? Can you give me like a ceiling record and the floor record?
My ceiling record is Bill amazes me. We get some serious progression from our wide receiver core, and then Stidham has a Alex Smith-like season where he's able to just get the job done, and the defense just does what it can always do. And in that case, I think we go 8-8, 9-7. Probably, I'd say 9-7.
Yeah, I'm maybe a little bit more bullish on our success. 9-7, 10-6, maybe at the best. Because Josh McDaniels is still there, good offensive coordinator. And then the floor, pretty low. Like
my floor is literally a 2-win season. I really think we could be that bad, especially if that's the decision we're making as a team to lose. I mean, look, the thing of part of me really thinks that we are tanking, but at the same time, we sign guys like McCourty and Chung, and keep them on our roster, like older players who don't want to be on a team that's intentionally bombing, And I just, and a guy like, Gilmore is obviously locked in on that multi-year contract, but I mean, we have some serious pieces that just like don't want to be particularly on the defensive end. We have some real serious players who just like are not going to want to be on a team intentionally bombing.
Yeah.
Like with the Dolphins, obviously they had their tank this year. And the thing is, though, is they had a bunch of people perfectly content with losing,
Yeah.
I don't want to say like they were happy to lose. Obviously, no professional athlete wants to be losing games. But they had a lot of guys who were at a point in their career, young guys, where they could deal with one bad season, By the time you get to like McCourty's age, you're thinking I have like 2 or 3 years left, 2, 3, 4, something along those lines. and every year counts, and you want to be in contention. That's why guys like Joe Thomas on the Browns, who were able to just like stick it out for so many
Yeah,
years
that
on a
guy,
terrible
man.
team. I mean, Joe Thomas really an all-time great at his position.
Probably the best offensive lineman ever.
Probably the best O lineman ever. And I mean, he's just stuck it out on a terrible team. And I mean, those guys are just rare, And so is McCourty one of those guys? Is Hightower one of those guys? Is Chung one of those guys? Is Gilmore? I mean, Gilmore's a little bit on the younger side, but Gilmore's in his prime, you could say. Does Gilmore want to waste his prime on a team that's trying to tank? Like, I don't know. And also Bill Belichick, Bill Belichick is a guy who believes in winning above all else. I mean, the fact that Bill was willing to trade Brady, logically, that made sense at the time. You can't trade Tom Brady, but I mean, it logically made sense to trade Brady with the way Garoppolo was developing. That's just stone cold Bill right there. Just doing whatever it takes to try to ensure that the Patriots are winning in the future, And so I wonder. I wonder if that's what we're doing. Because, I mean, if it isn't what we're doing, then why not be more active in free agency?
Yeah, that's definitely a talking point. I think my floor for us maybe is slightly higher just because I think Belichick, McDaniels, both McCourties, Gilmore, our defense is just too talented for us to lose every game unless we're intentionally tanking. I think the lowest that we can possibly be is probably like 4-12 or something like that, which is really bad. But I think that we have enough talent. Like, we're more talented than like Jacksonville or Carolina or some team like that. So I'm a little bit more hopeful that our floor isn't worst team in the league level bad. You got anything more to add on the Patriots? Yeah, maybe we could talk about Tampa Bay briefly because, they've got Tom Brady and Gronk now. So I think they're probably worth talking about. So, Brady, Gronk, both older players, and Tampa Bay wasn't a great team last year. They weren't horrible. Pretty much the story with Tampa Bay last year was they had a guy named Jameis Winston at quarterback who had all the talent in the world, great arm, but had a bad problem with interceptions and turned the ball over in key moments consistently, threw 30 interceptions last year. And they decided to go after Tom Brady. So I know Brady and Gronk both quite old, but do you think that they're good enough to elevate Tampa Bay? And do you think they're like a playoff team? Do you think they're a Super Bowl contender? Or do you think they're just totally pretenders right now?
I think they're a Super Bowl contender. And I think most people sort of have them in the playoff team range of the spectrum you just gave, But I mean, the way I see it is you've given Tom Brady the best group of weapons he's had since 2007. The perfect season. Now, obviously, Brady's a lot older. And obviously, 2007 was not the perfect season because it ended in a Super Bowl defeat to the Giants. But I mean, that was just one of the most insanely explosive offenses the NFL has ever seen. And it was the direct result of Brady just getting a fantastic group of receivers to work with. And I mean, I really think what he's getting in Tampa Bay right now, I mean, Brady, Mike Evans, they just have so many weapons, and then Gronk obviously coming in at tight end as well.
Yeah, Chris Godwin.
Great addition to my fantasy team last year. I mean, it's just all these weapons, all these offensive superstars that Brady's going to get to work with. And I mean, I truly think that Brady's got a lot of gas left in the tank. I think he was horribly hampered by a young, inexperienced, and just not really physically ready for the NFL receiving core last year. I say not physically ready with like a Jacoby Myers type guy. Like I think he needs to get a little more explosive, bulk up a little bit. Mentally, I say N'Keal Harry, obviously. And then I mean Edelman was good, but Edelman can't be the double team.
Yeah.
He can't. I mean, there are certain special receivers in the league who can beat a double team, like your Julio Jones, your DeAndre Hopkins, your AB in his prime. There's a certain class of receivers, and although Edelman's great, he's just not with that group of guys, and so you can double team him, completely neutralize him. And then if our other receivers are unable to make a play in one-on-one coverage, we're screwed.
Yeah.
To put it bluntly. And so, I think Brady was just Brady's disappointing year last year was the product of disappointing circumstances. And we tried to go after Sanu, and we got him, but he just did not do much. Didn't seem to get himself open, really. And then we tried to get Antonio Brown, too much of a head case.
Yeah, Josh Gordon, same
kind of
deal.
Like Brady just got screwed last year, and I really think with all these offensive weapons, and the Bucs really aren't that bad on the other side of the ball.
Yeah,
they're a pretty darn good defense. I really think that this team can be in the hunt this season. And I think that this could be a year that's similar to Peyton Manning's season when he went over to the Broncos.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. And look, will he break all the records that Manning broke that year in terms of touchdowns, yards, et cetera, et cetera? Probably not. Brady's a little older than Manning was at the time, a little further past his prime. But I really think it's a similar scenario in which you get a really experienced veteran quarterback and you give him a bunch of young, strong weapons to use on the offensive side of the ball. And then you say, let's see what you can do. And I really think that Brady is going to prove a lot of haters wrong this year, and the Bucs are going to have a fantastic season.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I think that this is a Super Bowl contending team. They have the best tight end core maybe ever with Gronk, OJ Howard, and Brate. Even if Gronk isn't what he once was, OJ Howard and Cameron Brate are great
tight ends. They were the best tight end core in the league last season.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably argue for other teams, but yeah, I think the O-line is not as good as it was in New England, but they invested a first-round pick in Tristan Wirfs from Iowa, and then Ryan Jensen and Ali Marpet aren't bad. Donovan Smith, hopefully he can hold up at tackle. Alex Kappa at right guard is a bit of a problem. But right guard, it's not like an extremely important part of the line. Their running back group isn't very good. Ronald Jones and rookie Keyshawn Vaughn, who I think is from Vanderbilt, I want to say. But I think those offensive weapons are just so crazy that offense is going to be one of the top in the league. And then I was going to bring up the defensive side of the ball too. And you brought it up, but yeah, they had the best run defense in the league last year, and Vita Vea at nose tackle, the guy is just a tank, and he can play all over the line, just like crazy rare blend of agility and size. Picture Danny Shelton, who's been on the Patriots for a few years, like that size player. Playing on the edge and stuff like that. So he's a super talented player. Ndamukong Suh, another older guy, but in his prime he was really good, and he's still a productive NFL player.
He was a terror.
Yeah,
on the lines, a terror.
Yeah, and then William Golston and Jason Pierre-Paul. Again, both older guys, but they're vets and they're productive players. They were productive last year. Their linebacking core it really could be like pushing one of the best linebacking cores ever. It's in that discussion. Levante David has been the most disrespected player in the NFL for his entire career. This guy is an insane tackler. And then there's Devin White, a second-year player from LSU, did good in his rookie year. And then Shaquille Barrett, who I think he was the league leader in sacks last year. So that front seven is ridiculously good. Secondary, not so great. I mean, Sean Murphy Bunting isn't bad, and Carlton Davis had a good year. Jamel Dean, but I think the appeal is that front seven. That is a ridiculously good front seven. So I think when you look at that front seven, you look at those weapons. You still got Tom Brady, who's the best quarterback ever, although he's old. I think the Bucs are contenders.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. I really love that you bring up Levante David, who's somebody that we've talked about a lot in the past. I mean, he's just a fantastic player. And I mean, really, the reality is you rarely get a defense that has both a super strong front seven and a super strong secondary. It's really difficult to find a defense where you have both of those aspects at an elite level. But if you're just able to get one of those at an elite level, then that's enough to allow the other to perform well. For instance, like let's say you get the front seven to the level that the Bucs have it right now. Great run defense, obviously, but they're also putting great pressure on the QB, which then leads to more mistakes, more hurried passes, which allows the secondary to make more plays. Vice versa with a team like the Patriots, who's consistently had a fantastic secondary over the last couple of seasons. You allow the front seven to make more plays because people aren't getting open. And so, look, you rarely find a combination of a team where both the front seven and the secondary are firing at all cylinders. But if you can get one of them at an elite level and the other one at a decent or respectable level, then you can have an elite defense.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there. That's great analysis. So yeah, I think we're both on the same page. Tampa Bay, I think they're going to be a top 5 team in the NFL next year. I don't think they're quite as good as Kansas City. I think Kansas City has the best quarterback I've ever seen with my own 2 eyes. So that helps them a lot, and great weapons there. They won the Super Bowl last year, and it's hard to repeat, but they didn't really make too many changes. So
didn't need to.
Yeah, they're my early Super Bowl pick, but I think Tampa Bay and San Francisco,
Baltimore too.
Yeah, in the AFC, Baltimore. For me, in the NFC, you're looking at San Francisco or Tampa Bay. In my opinion, maybe New Orleans. They never seem to get over the hump. I don't know what it is.
Drew Brees just seems to be a bit of a choke artist come playoff time. It's not like he plays bad per se. It just doesn't seem like he elevates his game the way other quarterbacks do. And then the Pack show with Aaron Rodgers has just fizzled out slowly over the last few years. It's sort of tough to count him entirely out of the playoffs because he is still just an incredibly good quarterback. But there seems to be a lot of drama. I think Rodgers is a bit of a prima donna. And so, the Pack show just hasn't been doing all too great over the past few years. But yeah, I mean, it should be a really great NFL season. The thing that I want to bring up, though, Will, is what happens when Patty Mahomes gets off his rookie contract.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way the Chiefs roster is constructed right now, they've done a good job of not like locking in vets to super long-term deals. Like I think Tyrann Mathieu, who's a defensive guy on their team, is on a pretty short-term deal, which is good. Eric Berry, who was a guy they had on a big deal, they got rid of him. So the Chiefs are doing a good job not getting into that like sticky situation where you have a ton of guys on the books. They've done a good job managing their salary cap, and I don't think giving Mahomes the big contract and paying him all that money is going to screw them up too much. I mean, it'll hurt a player like Mecole Hardman, who's like probably their third or fourth best receiver. He's probably not going to be there long term just because they can't keep him. But yeah, I think generally speaking, Kansas City's done a good job managing their salary cap, and they got to take advantage of this year just because Mahomes is still on his rookie deal, and they can pay those Tyrann Mathieu type guys on short term deals. So yeah, I don't think the Chiefs are going to be in too much trouble. If you've got a quarterback of that caliber, you're going to win games no matter what. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess I just bring it up in the context of you're right. I mean, short term they shouldn't have many issues, but you look at a guy like Tom Brady who's just taken pay cuts his whole career, and I wonder, as those other contracts go stale, and you need to re-sign some of your star players, if the Chiefs are able to maintain that kind of success. Because you just look at all these teams, with fantastic quarterbacks that just haven't been able to sustain the kind of success the Pats have. And a lot of it has to do with the freedom Brady gave Belichick in free agency by just taking a pay cut year after year. I mean, in some years, literally getting paid like half of what he would get at market value.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, I know people say Brady's rich anyway, or Brady's wife makes all this money anyway. Sure, but there are very few people who turn down an extra 12 million.
Yeah.
An extra 15 million, an extra 16. There's just very few players that care enough about winning to do that. I don't care how much money you have. Like, it's insane, You don't see it in any sports anywhere.
Yeah.
Like somebody who's willing to make a $15 million sacrifice for the team.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely guys who sacrifice their salaries to play on a winning team. Marcus Smart is only getting paid like $12 million a year right now, and you've got guys like Nick Batum making 20. So yeah, I will say though, I think Gisele is kind of an unsung hero in all of this because she does make so much money. And as a result, it's kind of allowed Brady to take those pay cuts. So I guess I disagree with you there, just because it's true. Like, Gisele makes a lot of money, so Brady has the luxury of taking those pay cuts. So and it doesn't like hurt them financially at all. But I do see your point.
I feel like I agree with what you're saying, but the reality is, you could say for a guy like Gordon Hayward, the difference between 28 million and 14 million in terms of your lifestyle, I mean, it's not like a ridiculous difference,
Yeah.
It's not like it's going to completely change the way you live your life. But Gordon Hayward would not take a pay cut, despite the fact that it would help the team a lot if he did, because he's getting ridiculously overpaid. And I understand why he wouldn't take a pay cut, because very few people are going to sign away like $14 million a year. I don't care how much money you're making. It's just insane. I mean, human greed is a powerful thing. If I were in Brady's situation, I don't know. Like, I don't know. And I mean, I feel like a lot of people say, oh, I would do what Brady would do. But I mean, that 14, 15, $16 million a year extra, it gets pretty hard to deny, and it accumulates over time too, because he was doing that for like a decade.
Yeah.
I mean, it accumulated to like over $100 million in extra money that he could have been paid over the course of the Patriots' winning years. And so, I mean, I do think part of it has to do with Gisele making all that money, but I also think a lot of it has to do with Brady just valuing winning over money.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I agree with that. I think maybe that's part of the reason why he left too, to get that extra payday, because he's playing on a Patriots team that wasn't too hot last year. I mean, we made the playoffs, but we really stunk at the end of the season. I think we finished the like 2-5 or something in our last 7 games. We finished the year 10-6. I think we were actually 2-6 in our last 8 too. So yeah, we were not a good team, and Brady wasn't getting paid like as much as he could have. So I think that's definitely part of the reason why he left, along with the clashes with Belichick there. So I think that's probably all we have on the agenda for football today. Do you want to maybe move on to the NBA, John? I know the NBA season is supposedly coming back in July. What they're doing is they're taking the top 22 teams and putting them in the so-called bubble of Disney World in Orlando, and all the teams are going to be staying in hotels and stuff, and they're just going to play games there with no fans. It's sort of an interesting thing. It seems like there's a chance that the season just doesn't end up happening with the COVID-19 spike in Florida. I heard that a lot of Disney employees who were supposed to be helping out running the NBA season, running the tournament, if you will, have been diagnosed with COVID. So, and then you also have players. You have players arguing that it's not worth playing right now because of all the social injustice in the world right now, and they're claiming that it's not right to be playing. And then you also have NBA players in Europe. Davis Bertans said, "I'm not going to the U.S. I'm in Europe right now. Why would I go there? You guys have a bigger problem with the COVID-19 outbreak. So why would I leave Latvia? Why don't I just stay here and sit out?" And I think you can probably expect to see more of that, whether international players or just guys here who are like, it's not worth the risk for me. So we'll see if the season ends up playing out. It'll be interesting. Obviously, as a fan, I hope it does, but whatever is right for the players, and this is a very serious thing. So if it doesn't happen, then that's totally okay too.
Yeah, I mean, well, I do think it's important to note that like literally none of these players would die if they got it, or really even require hospitalization. I mean, they're all healthy young adults, and so I can understand why there would be a push to get it going. That being said, um, it's a tough situation if they're like going back to their families or
Yeah.
or things like that, and you can't keep track of what players are doing off the court. One thing that I thought is really funny that I want to bring up too is in the case that the NBA season does start, Disney and all that, the way they're going to organize what teams stay in what hotels is based off of how successful the teams have been thus far this NBA season. So they've separated the teams into different tiers for each level quality of hotel. And the Celtics are fortunately in that top tier, so they're going to be staying at those top hotels in Disney. But Disney smartly has hotels that can appeal to a wide range of incomes. And if you're one of those bottom teams like the Wizards, I'm sorry, but you're not going to be living in the nicest conditions.
Yeah. It's that's one of the funnier things from all of this. So the bottom tier hotel, I guess, is called the Yacht Club, and I saw a tweet from Sam Viceni, who works at the Athletic right now, and he said, "From now on, I want to call all those like middling teams who are like barely in the playoffs or like uh, at the back of the lottery, they should all just be called the yacht club teams because I don't know. It's just so like mind boggling. Like, well, that's just so crazy to do. I don't like that's just so weird to me. Like organizing.
Well, how else
would
you do it? How else would
you could just do it random, but
yeah, I don't know. It's funny. It's I think it was just a funny decision they made. I got a kick out of it.
Yeah, that's like that's a really I don't know. It feels a little weird to me, but I wanted to talk about the Celtics. I guess we'll just go about this assuming that the season does happen. So they'll finish out the regular season. Each team will play 8 games, and then they'll move on to the playoffs. So, John, I guess my question for you is: does Boston have a shot? I know we only have about 5 or 6 minutes left, so we'll cover this briefly. But do you think the Celtics really have a chance at contending against those top teams like the Bucks, the Lakers, the Clippers? Do we have a shot?
Short answer, no. I mean, look, right now I just don't think we have the talent to match up, particularly with the Clippers and Lakers. I just think we don't have the star power. I mean, the Warriors really proved over the last few seasons that if you just have a certain level of star power, you're just going to win championships, And you don't even necessarily need to have the deepest team. You don't even necessarily have those fantastic role players. If you just have enough star power, you're going to win games. Now, the Clippers have that star power, and then they also have depth and great role players.
Yeah.
And I just look at that roster, and I look at our roster, and I just say, this is like a sweep, In playoff basketball, it's a sweep. And I think there's a chance we can contend with the Bucks. I think we match up decently against them. But just looking at a team like the Clippers, to me, are the favorite out of the West. And let's say we're able to beat the Bucks in what would likely be a 7-game series, or something along those lines, a multi-game series, no doubt, something that gets stretched to the end. I really see us getting swept by the Clippers.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough scenario, I do think we're better than you're giving us credit for. I don't think we get swept by the Clippers. I know you're talking about playoff basketball and whatnot, but I'm thinking back to the regular season when we had that double overtime thriller victory against the Clippers. And I think that, we don't have Kawhi Leonard, but we do have Jason Tatum, who's up and coming, and we have Kemba Walker, who's great as well, and Hayward, borderline all-star, Brown, borderline all-star player, and then Marcus Smart, your favorite
my favorite player in the NBA.
And then Daniel Tice. I mean,
can
we talk about like the Tatum Tice pick and roll duo? I mean, that is just absolutely gorgeous. So yeah, maybe we're not as good as the Clippers or the Lakers, but I think we can be pesky. I think we can put up a fight against those guys. And I think next year we'll be able to pretty much keep everyone. I think Tice is a free agent, but we should be able to bring him back. I think we'll be more of contenders next year. Grant Williams, a guy I really, really like. We had 4 rookies or 4 draft pick rookies. I guess we had Taco Fall as well, but Grant Williams is a guy I think that can be utilized similarly to Tice, but Williams has more potential defending the perimeter, obviously shorter, but the guy is so strong. I really like what the Celtics have in place right now. I don't know if I'm with you. Like, I don't think we're good enough to contend we're contenders. I think we're probably the fourth best team in the NBA behind the Clippers, Lakers, and Bucks. Put them in whatever order you want. I think we're probably the fourth best team there, probably in the same tier as like Denver and Toronto and teams like that. But yeah, I like what we have going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, and just my final point will be, we're wrapping it up now, but my final point will be the reason why I just don't see us. Like I said, I really think the Clippers are going to come out of the West, and the reason why I don't see us beating the Clippers now, I think in a couple years we're going to have them, but now is I feel like structurally their team isn't that different from the Celtics, in terms of those two wings who can play both sides of the ball, being kind of like the core of the team. For the Clippers, you got Kawhi and PG. For the Celtics, you have Tatum and Brown. And now I'm not saying like these players are like perfect comparisons or anything, but just the concept of building your team around two athletic wings who can cover multiple positions and who are great on ball, off ball. I mean, I think that's similar structurally to what the Clippers have, and then you have a guard who's a pesky defender, Pat Bev, Marcus Smart,
Yeah.
And then in terms of bigs, I would argue that Harrell coming off the bench, in the same way Cantor's coming off the bench. Harrell is a tenacious offensive rebounder and putback finisher, just like Cantor. Obviously, Harrell plays the other side of the ball a lot better than Cantor. I mean, you can't even compare the two on that side. But still, the concept of having like a tenacious offensive rebounder, hustler, and putback finisher, off the bench. I mean, it's just, like I said, structurally, I think the teams are similar, but in all of those places, other than, save Marcus Smart, who I truly think Marcus Smart's a better defender than Pat Bev right now.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Other than that, I mean, they just have the advantage in all those various slots. And so I just think in a 7-game series, they're going to sweep us, or it's going to be 4-1. But with that, I think it's about time for us to sign off.
Yeah, this is a good first episode. We're excited to do more of these. That was Wicked Good Sports Talk with me, Will Morris, and John Morris, and we're going to sign off now. See you all next time.
Thank you very much.